Welcome back to the Boundary Corner podcast. My name is Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegel. How you doing, buddy?
It's Thursday, man. The weekend has begun. How are you doing?
Dude, I am good. Back from vacation. Been kind of working my way back into the swing of things after a few days in the mountains. It was a nice break, though. It was a very nice break. Got to relax a little bit, do a couple fun things. Nothing too major. What about you, man?
Just same old, man. Taking another Friday off, which I think I've got to go back and look. I think I have to take one more day off. So I think the only other Friday between now and Christmas, I'm now going to be taking off. So, short weeks from here on out, because you yourself just got a nice short week. And at the end of the year, it's kind of nice to look forward to a day off like every week, right?
That's always nice. It's a good feeling. I've been doing the a day or two a week in the office and 3 days at home. So it's been kind of a mixed match here for a while, but it'll be nice at some point to get back into the regular groove. But for now, I'll take having Mondays and Fridays at my house, so no commute.
Especially the Fridays after recording on Thursday nights, watching the collegiate game, watching the pro game. For you a while there watching baseball, it was like, I'm sure you were like, this is good. If I stay up to midnight and I sleep in, I could still wake up at 7:15, get in the shower, and be ready to work by 7:35. Let's do it.
That's the plan, man.
Yeah.
As long as I got 20 minutes to get my head wet and throw on some clothes, man, that's all I need. Brush my teeth. Nothing too major.
Nothing too major.
And got to throw the dad joke out there. All right, hell of a commute today, and then walk downstairs.
By the way, I'm looking at the Arkansas State game. They just ran, I believe, a punt return or just some sort of long play for a touchdown. So they're down 14 points. They have no rushing yards. And they're only down 14.
Wow, 0?
That is impressive. That is very impressive. Yeah. So,
man.
All right. Well, folks, let's get to it, man. We're hobnobbing here, having a good time on Thursday night. Back to know your enemy. This week, the enemy, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Now, they're coming in 2-2, coming off a 17-point win over UVA. Their only other win this year is over Campbell, with losses to NC State and Clemson. Now, a lot of interesting pieces as me and Brian were doing the research this week, and, some expected things, some unexpected things. So I'm going to click off with the one thing that I kind of didn't see coming. Wake Forest has one of the better rushing offenses in the ACC and kind of solid in the country, ranking 41st overall, 165 yards a game at 3.88 per carry with 13 touchdowns. Now, of the 13 touchdowns, Brian, good stat of the day here, 12 of them have been in the red zone.
Okay.
Which is number 3 in the country for red zone touchdowns. They're led by number 9, Kenneth Walker, who is ranking as the number 23 rusher in the country at 383 yards through 4 games with 7 touchdowns. That's 4th in the country. He ranks 30th in yards per carry at 5.72. Wake was his only P5 offer for this 2-star. He continues to build from a strong freshman year of 579 yards. Now, you would think that's really good for Wake Forest. Well, they actually have a second really good running back as well, putting up some good numbers. Christian Beal-Smith, number 26, 3-star. He's local to the 336 out of East Forest High School. So far, 256 yards rushing this year, 4.4 for rush, and getting in 4 touchdowns. Now, Brian, Walker, UVA game last week, you probably saw the play, that big 75-yard run for a touchdown, real game breaker. Beal with a pretty nice longest run this year of 31 yards. Now, Brian, as you started looking at the tape with these two guys on the rushing attack, with this kind of mesh rushing attack, what are you seeing? These guys the same? Are they a little different?
Definitely different styles. Walker, I mean, you talked about him. He's busting the big runs, and he is a guy that he is very patient in the backfield. He lets the blocks develop. He lets the linebackers get a fit, and then makes his move, makes his decision of where he wants to go with the football. So what that ends up doing is that, occasionally he'll have a big negative play because he's in the backfield with no forward momentum. But when things go the way he wants them to, he'll get an alley, especially if those linebackers over pursue while he's dancing around in the backfield. All of a sudden, you got an alley, and all he has to really do is make a safety miss, and he's off to the races there. And that's what happened against UVA on that long touchdown run. So he's the guy that's kind of going to make things happen, wait it out, and then burst through the hole and try to get a big gainer. Beal Smith is a little different. He's going to read that long mesh a little bit quicker. He's not going to kind of stand in the backfield. He's going to kind of get to where his point of attack is, and then once he reads the blocks, he's kind of more of a one cut and kind of gets up in there. So he's more consistent in terms of not having any negative plays, but he's not the guy that's busting the big gainers as often as Walker. So kind of different styles. Beal Smith's the guy that's going to kind of, he's the jabber, and Walker's kind of the guy that's throwing the haymakers.
Which one worries you more? Against our defense, not any other.
Against our defense, definitely Walker.
Okay.
Walker bothers me more. He breaks more tackles, and because of his patience and because of some of the problems we've had with run fits so far, and some safety tackling. Obviously, some of those didn't have our front line guys, but some of those things definitely worry me in terms of, we want to contain some of those big runs, especially after what we saw against another different style RPO, but also an RPO rushing attack from UNC. So definitely watch out for Walker, but don't sleep on Beal Smith either.
Got it. Now, I also want to talk about, obviously we want to talk about the passing game here. Let's talk about Sam Hartman. Hartman was a starter his freshman year. The team finished 7-6. Last year, obviously, he was unseated by Jamie Newman, but he did play some. So essentially, over his first 2 years, he was in 13 games where he threw for 2,800 yards, 20 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. So he's coming in with significant experience. This isn't typically what you'd see out of a redshirt sophomore with this many games played. Now, Brian, so far this year, 893 yards passing, 62% completion. Kind of solid there, but he's only passed for 3 touchdowns with no interceptions. The one thing I find really interesting is he is a top 15 in pass per completion at 14.4. It's almost 9 per attempt. So that I'm going to kind of ask you in a second what you're seeing. He's not putting up crazy numbers, but he seems to be getting them in a position to score based off the red zone rushing numbers. Clearly his favorite target is Ja'Carius Robertson, the 6'1", 182 redshirt wide receiver, consensus 3-star out of North Carolina, 20 receptions, 314 yards. That ranks 37th in the country, so pretty good, 15.7 per catch. Now, yards-wise, he is head and shoulders above the other guys on the team. But a couple guys are, I would say, relatively close to him in, reception-wise. Taylor Moran has 15 receptions, and A.T. Perry has 13. And although Moran has more yards, I just want to hit on Perry real quick because Perry is a 6'5", 212-pound receiver. With that kind of build, got 194 yards, right at 15 per catch. I see his size. I think about our secondary. I feel like there could be some potential mismatches there. That worries me a little bit. Now, Moran is from Nova. Out of Centerville, 5'10", 174, is the leader of the team with 2 touchdown catches, and 197 yards. Brian, me and you talked about it a little earlier this week, but they really don't use the tight ends and the running back as part of the passing attack. So, Brian, as you started breaking down what do they like to do? What is, the things we need to be looking out for where if they're hitting, it's like they're finding their groove in this offense?
I'm going to go back to it. The offense tends to go as the success of that long mesh RPO goes. Whether it's the rushing game or the passing game, that's what they want to do. That's how they want to attack you. And when they can have success with it, they can both pop off big runs, but they can also pop off some big plays in the passing game where they get either one-on-one matchups up the seam, or you've got safeties that are looking in the backfield and all of a sudden a guy runs past the safety and he gets a big gain in the passing game. So that's what they like to do. They're only just okay when they're not running kind of that RPO, when they're just lining up and slinging the ball around.
Okay.
So if we can get them to where they can't have good success on like first and second down with the RPO, we can get them in scenarios where they're more of a straight drop back team, and that's where we can take advantage of them because they're not great there. They can still hurt you, but they're not as dangerous. They definitely are predicated off that run action to get those big shots down the field.
What about the receivers? Obviously they're missing Sage Surratt, who opted out, which makes sense. He had a hell of a year last year. But what are you seeing from these guys I mentioned in their stats? What sort of routes, what do they do good that we've got to be looking for on Saturday afternoon?
So for Perry, the thing that they ran with him a lot is kind of the post wheel action. So they'll usually send either Moran or Roberson on the wheel, and he'll kind of run the post, and they'll hit him on the post. They like that play a lot. He's got a good body to kind of catch those balls over the middle of the field. He's also a stick mover with his size. He's a guy that'll get a couple catches over the middle, doesn't mind doing that for the team. So occasionally you'll see them hit him over the middle when they're trying to get a first down in some like 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 10 situations there. Morin, he's good at high pointing the ball despite his height. He'll go up and get it. Yeah. He plays taller than he is, I guess would be a good way to describe it. And he's also good at stretching defenses laterally. So if anybody is the guy that's kind of making defenses have to honor sideline to sideline, he's the guy that you're looking for. Roberson is the do-it-all guy. He's kind of the glue guy in the receiving core. He can hurt you deep. He can hurt you over the middle. Shifty, does a good job of kind of getting himself into a good spot within zone coverage and moving the sticks. And the guy you didn't talk about, but the guy I'll highlight is Green. He is a freshman wide receiver for them, but looks a lot bigger than that. I mean, this guy looks like a guy that's been in a program for a couple years. Pretty strong looking receiver. They like to hit him deep up the seam, and he's the guy that they'll throw the fade routes to. And he's kind of coming into his own. He's kind of the fourth option here. But he made a couple big plays in the UVA game that really helped them out.
Yeah, pretty highly recruited, probably the highest recruited guy on this team. He was a 4-star coming out of Mount Airy. Didn't mention in the stats weren't there. Obviously, you look at the tape and you see more out of him. Now, Brian, something I did notice, and I want to kind of ask you, because you kind of hit it already. You talk about not being a drop back and pass team, and obviously 2 of their 4 games, they were down. So they had to drop back and pass. They're not good at protecting the quarterback at all. They are 74th in the country. Sacks allowed at 16 in 4 games. So literally the bottom rung, similar to BC, similar to Duke that we've discussed on previous. Now, what are you not only seeing from the offensive line, Brian, but I kind of want to ask you, what do you see from them? But what else do we need to do to attack this offense to get them out of those mesh runs and stuff?
Sure. So let's talk about the offensive line first. So with the offensive line, they're a much better run blocking team than they are pass blocking team. They're not kind of road graders. They're not an offensive line that's going to really move you off the ball, get a lot of pancakes. I mean, they're not that type of offensive line, but what they do well is that within that RPO scheme, they get to their blocking responsibilities and they do a good job of staying on those blocking responsibilities. So we're gonna have to shed tackles. We're gonna have to have good run fits.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
With the mesh and RPO, should we be blitzing a lot? Should we be trying to attack them in those gaps?
Personally, I would not want to do that.
Why not?
Well, number one, if you guess wrong on your blitz, you could be out of position and not have the right leverage in the run game to match that mesh, and that could pretty much put a safety on an island, saying, if he doesn't make the tackle, it's going for a big, big gain.
Oh, okay.
And, from a running perspective, once you start blitzing, if you don't get there, that's where they can hurt you because they're looking for those kind of one-on-one matchups or single-man matchups in the zone game where they can hit you up the seam and hit you deep down the sideline on some of those post routes. So okay. I would personally be selective with my blitzes. I wouldn't send anything on first down, second down, and third down if it's under 8 yards because they can still use that RPO game, and I feel like that could take advantage of the blitz. Now, if they are in those scenarios where you're pretty sure they're going to be straight drop back, that's when I would blitz.
All right.
That's when I would take advantage of that poor offensive line when they don't have that element where you have to kind of dual read.
All right. So since clearly my knowledge of what they do on offenses to your more professional opinion is wrong, what do we got to do? What do we need to do to slow them down?
So big thing, again, is going to be run fits. Make sure that those are that they stay disciplined. They don't over pursue when you've got Walker kind of moving around in the backfield and waiting for things to develop. Stay where you need to be. Get him to the spill area and then let those guys kind of clean up the trash. Make them drive the field. They love chunk plays. Now, they have the ability to drive the field. They run pretty well. They pass pretty well. But they're not great when you have to make them go a long way without getting chunk plays. So if we can do that, that'll get them off the field more consistently. Now, the other thing we need to make sure is that our safeties cannot get caught with their eyes in the backfield when they run that long mesh RPO, because they really love to throw the ball up the seam, and they could really hurt us on some deep balls. UVA got bit quite a few times. NC State got bit a couple times in the tape that I watched, and we got to make sure that we're not looking in the backfield on that RPO, and all of a sudden, you got Roberson or Perry running past us.
Got it. So it sounds like a lot of discipline this week. I am super glad that Diablo will have another full week of practice. Anticipating, we did not see Keonta much last week, but anticipating maybe that
he'll have a full week of practice. I think he got cleared either Wednesday or Friday of last week, so he either had very limited or no practice before last week's game, which is why we didn't see him.
Okay, so that makes me feel a little bit better there. Obviously, with Rook, the comments he made earlier this week about being, kind of taking him some time to get back to where he was before having the COVID, that makes me feel better. You kind of think the same with Tisdale, and that guys starting to get their feet under them, starting to get back feeling better, not only just in the safeties and the linebackers, but just the unit as a whole. It felt like the second half last week, Brian, we saw them kind of come together and really start clamping down. I think it made some of us come off a little bit like, okay, that's kind of the units we expected to see, not what we saw the first couple weeks when we're missing players.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I liked a whole lot the adjustments that were made at halftime, because what they did in the second half looked a lot better. I know they mixed up, a little bit more man into some of the coverages, or kind of showing man and then still dropping into zone. So they were mixing up coverages a little bit more. in the second half, and I think that confused Dracovic a little bit and got some negative plays for us that we ended up taking advantage of.
Absolutely. All right, a couple other just quick stats so you know, folks, so you know, Brian. Only converting 38.9% of their third down, so kind of a lower number there. They've only had one turnover all year. One fumble, that's it, all year. So they do play very clean, but they've also played clean in multiple games and had, NC State game we watched kind of, here, and it was kind of like, okay, they got down, clearly playing Clemson. You can play clean and still get destroyed by them. I mentioned the red zone rushing attempts. They've had 23 total red zone rush attempts, 15 touchdowns. So pretty solid number there in converting because they scored on 21 of them. And kind of go back to last year, that game, which was a fun game to watch. That was a game our buddy Robbie was in town, and I met him at Hurley's, and we watched the end of the game there. But it was one of those sort of great performances. But last year, the offense, against this offense, they registered 7 tackles for loss. So far this year, Wake is allowing 8.5 tackles for loss a game. If Tech hits that 8.5 average, it's going to be a very long night for Sam Hartman because he is going to have to be back passing, to your point earlier, because if they're not getting 3-4 yards on those first downs, he's going to have to drop back.
Yep. And that's what we need to do. If we can get them behind the sticks on early downs, we're going to have success against them. We'll be able to slow their offense down. If we don't, it might end up being, one of those things where we got to kind of outscore them a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. I kind of like our chances regardless of the way it goes because I like what we do on offense better, which we're, going to kind of get to what they do on defense here in a second. So I'll let you start with some of the stats, and I'll jump in there and tell you what I saw on film.
All right, let's throw some interesting stats out here because below average defense, in my opinion. They're ranked 57 in total defense, giving up over 450 yards a game, 5.79 a play. I go to that. I look immediately at the rushing stats because it's what we do best. They are 62nd in the country. They are giving up 198 rushing yards a game at 4.6 per rush. I am sure when you hear that, Brian, you're starting to salivate over there, knowing what we can do with the run. Now, I look at the ACC games only. I throw the Campbell game out. They're giving basically 32 points per game up. That's to Clemson, NC State, UVA. Clemson, me and you texted during that game. Clemson literally turned that off after the second quarter. Clemson was already at 37. NC State put 45 on them, and then UVA with really no offensive game plan last week. That was pitiful to watch, especially when you figures to.
You played 3 backup quarterbacks, and none of them really played well consistently. It was such a weird game plan. I feel like they might have been better just maybe going out there and running Armstead the whole game because at least he can hurt you with his feet, but he can throw good enough. But they didn't. They ended up, running Stone out there that was more of the passer, and then you had Keontae Thompson that's more of the runner, and then Armstead that kind of does both okay. And it was just kind of a mixed match the whole game that wasn't effective for them, and especially wasn't effective once Wake kind of took some time at halftime and looked at what they were doing and made some adjustments.
Absolutely. All right, a couple other real quick stats before you get in deep on the scheme and the personnel. One big problem they have on defense is that the offense is only averaging 26 minutes a game per possession. I mean, I think about the way we're running the ball. If that offense can't stay on the field, that defense is going to hate us all night. 56 in the country in surrendering third downs at 45.8. Only 8 sacks through 4 games. They are forcing turnovers though. 6 picks, 3 fumbles, and as I stated earlier, with only 1 turnover, a +8 turnover margin, which is pretty high up there. So Brian, what are we, when I give you all these stats, does the stats say that they are in a below average defense? And what do we have to look at their scheme and personnel wise that maybe makes them a below average defense?
So let's start with this. I don't think they're below average, but I think their rushing defense is porous. And I think that's where we're going to take some advantage, especially considering that's our strength. So Wake likes to line up in a 4-2-5, so a very similar front to what we run. Play a lot of single high safety. Usually have the other safety either in the box or near the line of scrimmage, out on a slot receiver or a flexed out tight end or something like that. Occasionally they'll drop him into a 2-deep look, but that's kind of few and far between. The thing they do best is that they tackle very well. So they're clean on that front. They don't miss very many tackles. They gang tackle well. They don't give up a lot of cheap yards.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that there's not some holes that we can take advantage of. Now, the one player that's going to be the problem that we're going to focus on is going to be Boogie Basham, the defensive end. Probably one of the more balanced defensive ends in the ACC in terms of being good against the run and good against the pass. And he's really quick for a guy that's 285 pounds. He has an undetermined 40 time, but he runs somewhere in, I think, like the 4.6, 4.7 range, and has good quickness out the gate. So he's a guy that you want to watch for. I mean, you see him a lot of times, even when he's out of the play, chasing it down from behind and making the tackle downfield. So he's going to be a guy to look out for. They play a lot of off coverage to the short or weak side of the offense. So towards the boundary, you usually see cornerbacks about 8 to 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. So we might have some advantage to get some short routes, quick routes out to the wide receiver and let him do some stuff in space there, with them playing that far off on a consistent basis. Now, one other thing that they did do when I was watching the UVA game is that they did at times struggle to contain a mobile quarterback. So when Thompson and Armstead were in the game, they were able to bust some runs, especially in the first half.
Okay.
Looks like they adjusted a little bit in the second half to take some of that away. But I saw Armstead get about a 25-yard gainer. Thompson got a big third down gainer. They led to their first touchdown. Got a big run down the sideline for about 35 yards. So they are susceptible to some quarterback runs. And if we look back to last week with what Hendon Hooker was able to do in the run game, that's something we might be able to take advantage of as well. Now let's talk about their rush defense in general. It's definitely weaker than the past, like I've been discussing here. They do a decent job of setting the edge, but they kind of struggle in the middle. The middle is where they're susceptible. They've got a linebacker that he's probably their weakest link. I believe he's number 8. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but a lot of teams ran right at him. He had some struggles getting off blocks, shedding blocks. So I think we will probably run inside-outside zone, but there's going to be those cutback lanes in the outside zone where we can get up and attack in the middle of that defense. And I think that's where we'll pop off some of those big plays that we've seen Khalil Herbert and a couple times with Raheem Blackshear busting some big ones. In the secondary, they play really good zone shell, usually cover 3. They don't give up a ton of deep stuff, so we're not going to be probably taking a bunch of shots on them unless it's kind of coming off play action where we can get them kind of more one-on-one or out in space in zone coverage where we can throw behind the linebackers and in front of the safeties. But you can attack them a lot underneath that zone, but you got to be patient.
Okay.
I think that's the big thing we're going to need to do in this game is kind of be patient with the passing game. We're going to need it, but we can't just think that when we go to the passing game, we're just going to break off a bunch of chunk plays and score some points off those. I think we're going to need to be patient. Take the 8-yarder, take the 12-yarder, take the 5-yarder. If it's there, take it. Don't try to force it. But they are susceptible, like I was saying, when in play action when the running game's working. That's where the chunk plays and the passing attack came from, especially, like I said, kind of behind the linebackers and in front of the safeties. So that's how I would attack them.
Okay.
Run the ball consistently, run that play action, and just be patient with the ball and don't take chances with the ball.
Nice, Brian. I think what you're telling us here is with who we've got at the controls, I don't see him forcing anything, deep. And then what you're talking about on the inside, I think we're going to hit here in a couple minutes. A few things that will definitely make sense to who we feel are some of the pivotal players. For Wake Forest's defense, they did have to play Clemson. They had to play Wake Forest in Wake Forest's first game. So maybe some of those stats, maybe why I'm feeling I look at the numbers and I feel they're below average is just the stats telling me that. But, it's just one of those things where it's like the only team they've really been able to stop is Campbell, who doesn't count, and UVA, who couldn't figure out, what to do on offense versus just saying, hey, this worked well against them. This is what we've got to do. That's one thing I don't think with our offense is going to happen. I think we know what our identity is, and we go right after it. And by saying that, Brian, let's go to pivotal players.
Okay.
And taking over the number one spot this week, in a shock to me when you brought this name out earlier today, but after you just explained how bad they are in the inside, I am now not shocked at all. Taking over the number one spot for pivotal player this week on offense, Brock Hoffman. Brian, care to explain?
If we can run between the tackles, we will win this football game. And with Brock making the calls inside there, Brock handling a lot of the handoff responsibilities in that four-man front, and making the adjustments with who's going to be up on the linebackers, I trust him and what he does, and I think he's gonna feast. And I'm gonna go ahead and add another name just because we're talking about offensive linemen. Kind of the 1B here would be Luke Tenuta coming back this week, and drawing Boogie Basham on a lot of those any third down plays where we're dropping back, probably gonna have Boogie coming after him. So I think if he can hold up on the pass pro on those third and longs, and like I said, I think Brock's going to be the guy that's going to help us feast on the running game, and I think the combination should be good for us. If those guys can do well, we're probably going to have a good day.
Awesome. Now the second one, not as shocking when we were discussing just a few minutes ago about how well UVA's more mobile quarterbacks ran. Slipping down one spot this week in the pivotal rankings, Hendon Hooker. I mean, what he did last week, man, 164 yards is the second most, rushing yards by a Virginia Tech quarterback since Michael Vick.
Yep.
It's so impressive. He looked very confident out there. He looked patient. He didn't look worried. He was taking what was given to him. He was stepping out of bounds when he needed to. He was essentially avoiding the big shots, and now even more so for Wake Forest with him being fully back. I'm sure in their meeting rooms tell me something like what would be said in that meeting room this week as they're looking at the tape with him breaking 164, Juice what he's done, Blackshear's breaking some big plays, potential for what can they be think what is their message? Because it's not one. It's literally you're going to have to protect the entire field from a potential rush.
Yeah, I mean, what they're gonna be saying is that they're gonna try to, I think, make us earn every yard. I think that's the message that they would have to say there. Don't let kind of one play beat you, because we can attack both laterally and down the field, in the rushing attack and in the passing game. I know the passing game hasn't really taken off in terms of putting up the big numbers, but with Hendon Hooker in there, it really hurts them because he can make all the throws and attack at different levels, like we were talking about in the BC game. I mean, just because he was effective with his limited number of throws, and he attacked different parts of the field, so that meant they had to honor it for 4 quarters. And I think we're going to see something similar this week, and that's why Hendon Hooker's there, and also because of his legs again. We talked about Armstead and Thompson having some success against Wake Forest in the rushing game, and I think we're going to see some more of that, both from design runs and from areas where Hooker just sees a lane and he'll take advantage of it and get upfield for a first down.
Absolutely. Last one, Brian, we were discussing today as you were kind of talking to me about, those short 5 yards, 7 yard routes. We kind of landed that we're going to have at least one wide receiver to need to be a pivotal player, and kind of the guy and I think maybe we lean towards him more than anything is Trey getting nicked last week, not being able to play. We went Tavion Robinson. Give me more specifics of why you went with him, because you felt like he was going to be over Trey. Probably, I'm guessing the injury thing is probably what you're thinking about. Is what are they going to let Trey do as far as that goes?
Injuries, and we're not going to need probably as many big shots against this team, and I think guys like Tavion Robinson and James Mitchell are going to have a lot of success. And I went with Tavion Robinson just because we're going to need some more output from our wide receiver unit this week. And I think he's going to be the guy to step up just because of the way when he gets the ball in his hands, he has a very good job of getting upfield, with his vision and kind of getting the first downs and moving the chains for us. So I like what he would bring against this defense, kind of working between the zones, and also times when we're able to throw it out to him real quick when those corners are in off, and just letting him kind of get upfield and read the blocks and make a play.
Got it. All right, so there's our top 3 pivotal players on offense: Brock Hoffman, Hendon Hooker, Tavion Robinson. Let's flip it over to the defense. And Brian, I feel like every week more and more, me and you, when we're putting this together, we're finding it more difficult to do one specific defensive player. It's always the unit. And today, every week's no difference. I mean, number one, as soon as you started talking about the mesh earlier today when we were running through this, I'm like, it's linebackers, isn't it? And you're like, you're correct.
Ding. Ding. Big thing, get the right fits, don't over pursue, and don't get sucked in on the RPO and, put your safeties out on islands. I just think that's the big thing. If the linebackers can play disciplined in this game, we're going to have a lot of success.
All right, I want to ask you this question. Who's starting at backer Saturday?
Tisdale.
Okay. I wanted to get your opinion on that. And obviously, again, the more games that go by, as I stated earlier, the better these guys are in more playing shape. So let's hope they're back to their normal selves. Second one, a little interesting, Brian, because as we discussed it, the number 3 one is the one I had too, but you pushed me hard for saying our corners. Why is our corners, you feel? Is it because of some of the stuff you're talking about of them? They like to push. Is that really the big reason you feel the corners are
pushing the ball downfield, whether outside or up the seam? Corners are going to come up big for us if we're going to have some success to hold that passing game down. We could easily say here the entire defensive backfield, because the safeties are going to have to make sure that they're keeping their eye discipline on that RPO. But the corners are going to have to play well because they do take shots. They're not a team that's going to throw it in front of you where you can come up and make a tackle. They're going to try to push the ball down the field. So we've got to make sure that we're not giving up those chunk plays. So the cornerback play is going to be very important across the board, regardless of who we see in there getting the significant amount of snaps, whether it's Chapman, whether it's Taylor, Murray. Obviously, Connor's going to be in there pretty consistently at the whip, but all those guys are going to be really important in this game, and hopefully they play a good one and keep those guys in front of them for 4 quarters.
All right. Now, number 3 on the list, the one I felt should be number 2, but sometimes Brian has the override here. Like, you know, he is the executive technical producer of this program, technical being the key term. But I want defensive tackles. Did they play out of their mind last week against BC? No. Did they play better than they did against UNC? Even my uneducated football eyes could see that they did. And Deshaun Crawford got some run late in that game. We really need him back. I love Pollard to death, but Pollard's still undersized. And, when teams come at him, he can get pushed out of the way.
Pollard's smaller than Basham.
Yes, he is. He's like 275 pounds.
Yeah.
You talk about getting him on a pass rush. Oh, he can eat alive those guards and centers. He's just that quick off the line. But when it comes to the run, it's struggling. Brian, other reasons we put the defensive tackles here, because you did agree that they deserve to be in the top 3.
Yes, they're going to be important because we're going to need them to do a couple things. Number one is that they're going to need to spill those running backs out there where the safeties can make plays on the edge. Connor can make tackles on the edge. So if we can spill those consistently and still have guys there to get the tackle, that's going to be important. And by safeties getting the tackle, I don't mean safeties getting the tackle 8 yards down the field. I mean safeties filling at or near the line of scrimmage and bringing them down. That's what ideally we would want to do, is make sure that we don't let them get to the second level before we've got a guy there to bring him down, whether it's tackling in between the tackles or those defensive tackles getting the running backs to spill outside and either run the hump or have to make decisions before they're ready. Because with that slow mesh, man, they're going to give us opportunities to put negative plays in their backfield. But we've got to get off the blocks.
All right. Coming in 2021, everyone, Brian Siegel's weekly segment of Fill Your Gap coming to YouTube. I'm going to just keep pushing you, and I think you would do it every week from a pro and a collegiate level. Just probably sparingly watching the game, then fill it. Let me just write down the real quick time of that. I'll pull it later and put it on my Fill Your Gap segment. Yep. All right, Brian, did you see the uniform reveal?
I did. White with the maroon helmet. All whites.
All whites. Ice, baby. Really just a slim, crisp look. Kudos to them. They let a big man model it this week. Kudos to
yes. Big Brock Hoffman was wearing the 25 in the promo.
He looks good.
As an offensive lineman, you love to see them get a little bit of love there.
Absolutely.
You don't usually see the big man out there rocking the sub 50 jersey. With the lighting going and all that, man. So it was nice to see a big man get some love there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at the video again. I love the way that the Hokie stone looks in the maroon, because it is, if you look really close, it's that embedded stone. It's such a cool look. And, with the whites, with the maroon helmet, such a sleek look down there, where I think I read today, I think Wake Forest sold out. Like, apparently some VT fans went bonkers and just bought up maybe 3,000 to 4,000 tickets. So it could be significantly a pro Hokie crowd of the 8,000 people there, which is awesome. Who got the 25 this week, Brian?
That would be Chamari Connor, who had a big game against BC, forcing a turnover, led the team in tackles, did really good things against the run, was a lot more effective in the zone, in the passing game than he's been the last few weeks. So if he can kind of figure out his spot in that zone, he's going to be damn impressive, because he's so good against the run, man.
He is, man. And, he's one of those guys that you feel like if he can continue to show out, he can probably find his way to the NFL. being slightly out of position, it kind of stinks for him. But I feel like I look at Jamari's body, and maybe I'm just not knowledgeable of human anatomy. I feel like Jamari Connor could gain somewhere between 10 to 15 pounds and be a weak side linebacker, a true weak side linebacker in the NFL. Am I stupid, or do you think it's true?
It wouldn't be unheard of in certain systems.
Okay.
I think if he gets the zone concepts down a little bit more, he could definitely play in like the hybrid, 4-3 Tampa 2 stuff that my Colts are playing right now. So there's potential there, no doubt. He'd probably have to throw on a few pounds, but if he could throw on a few more pounds and maintain his speed, I think we could definitely have a conversation there.
Absolutely. All right, well, Brian, let's get to it. Breakdown's done. Pivotal players revealed. Jersey, uniform, and 25 discussed. What is you actually? No, take it back, Brian. You led last week.
Okay, you gonna go? You gonna lead on here?
I will lead this week. Brian, I think as I texted you a few days ago, Brian, this game didn't worry me, and then it worried me, and then I looked more at the stats, and it doesn't worry me. I personally think in every facet of this game, at every level, we are better than them. I do.
Okay.
Them with only one turnover this year, I think that usually numbers catch up to you eventually. Saying Hartman's thrown 10 picks through 13 games. He has 0 through 4. It's time for a couple turnovers from them. And I think this might shock you. Hokies are going to win by 4 touchdowns. 52.
Oh. Okay.
52-20.
Okay.
I
you
think
put a big round number out there.
Big one. 50 burger. And
okay.
Potentially the way how their run defense, it would not shock me if as it gets later in that game you peek down and say, are we going to get 400 yards?
Okay.
What you think?
I'm not right there with you, but I definitely am predicting a pretty big win for the Hokies here. I've got 45-27.
Okay. You're pretty close. 45-27. So we're both predicting, over 3-score win for the Hokies in this game, folks. And I just think it's what we do, what they don't do. It's just a lot of things that go into it. All right. So we are going to essentially turn the Hokie stuff off, and we're going to go to our picks for the week, our ACC and college football picks. As we discussed on Saturday night, because we were having a good time, Brian was outside, a few brewskis in him in the wonderful Smoky Mountain air. Hell of a week for us last week, Brian. You went 6-3. I went 7-2. So we're going to do it again this week.
We've been on a roll lately, man. We've both been above 500 for the last 4 weeks.
You're on a 4-way roll. I'm on a 2-week roll.
Okay.
Yeah, you're on. You're really balling. I'm finally catching up to you. I caught one last week. I caught one the week before. After kind of jumping out on you early in the season. But either way, if you were betting us last week, you would have won some money. All right, Brian, let's start it up here. Let's start with some of the early games. Let's start with NC State, UNC. UNC laying 15. NC State starting quarterback Devin Leary out for 4 to 8 weeks with the fibula break. What you think here, man?
If Leary was playing, I would take NC State and the points, but I don't like it with Hockman in there. I don't like it UNC coming off an embarrassing loss and something to prove. So I'll take UNC to cover the 15.
Yeah, UNC coming off the loss. If Leary was in there, this would probably be, I'd say, like 7.5.
Yeah.
Significantly less.
7.5, 8.5, somewhere in that range.
I would be tempted to go with NC State if if Hockman hadn't played, a few times already this year, where essentially they know what they're getting.
Yeah.
If he hadn't played against Wake and against us, against Wake he did a phenomenal job. Against us, we essentially exposed him and he essentially got bent for Larry. I'd be the same way. UNC burned us last week, though, Brian. They absolutely lit us on fire. That was of the games that we agreed on. I think that and the Syracuse game are the only ones that burned us. So, we were 5-2 in the games we picked together. But I'm with you. I think UNC off the embarrassing loss. NC State without their true starting quarterback. I think UNC rolls. I think UNC probably gets to 40. I can't see NC State keeping it within 3 scores. All righty. Let's go to the real fun one, Brian.
Here we go.
Because when I gave you this number a little while ago, you went like, was that lower earlier in the week? I'm like, no, it's been this all week. You were like, Jesus. Syracuse, Clemson. Clemson is laying 45 points.
Yikes.
But, hold on.
Yep.
Last week, they almost covered that in the first half against Georgia Tech.
It is true. It is true.
7, they pushed it. So I don't think Clemson is going to go crazy Clemson this week and just annihilate them. I do think maybe last week was a statement after the loss or after the win against Miami, where they're okay, but they didn't look all dominant. I also think too, putting it on Georgia Tech, they put it on them in Atlanta. They recruit the hell out of Georgia. They don't really recruit New York or that area whatsoever. I'm going to take Syracuse in the points.
Okay.
I think Clemson still gets to 50, but I think Syracuse will get a couple scores to, covered by like a field goal to 4 points.
Yeah, I don't think they have a 60 burger again in them, so I'm gonna do the same thing and take Syracuse in the 45 points.
It's one of those games where we're gonna be sitting there on Saturday, keep an eye on this game. It's only like 14-21. Like just stop for a couple minutes. Let Ugalele play a few drives in the first half, please. All right. Brian, next, FSU Louisville. Louisville is laying 4.5 points to FSU coming off the massive victory. Let me look real quick here. This game is going to be at Louisville, high noon. What you think, Brian?
At Louisville, high noon. Louisville
laying 4.5. Over under is 61. If you want an idea of what the Vegas bettors or Vegas line makers think this game kind of scoring is going to be.
Oh man, this is one that I've been like thinking about since we started putting this thing together, man. Because I don't know what Louisville team to expect, and I don't know what FSU team to expect. And that's kind of been the theme of the last couple weeks, man. I don't think Louisville is going to play as bad offensively in back-to-back weeks as they did last week. So I'm going to take Louisville to cover the 4.5.
Louisville's going to cover the 4.5. All right. Yeah, these teams are like, just, they're schizophrenics. They see things, they do things that make no godly sense. You think they're both terrible, then Louisville freaking gets in a rock fight with Notre Dame in South Bend, which no one saw coming. And then, essentially FSU plays it's the best first half probably in the last 2 years down there, essentially hanging enough points to hang on versus UNC. I think FSU found something last week offensively. I think they started finding it at Notre Dame with the new quarterback. His name escapes me right now, so I'm going to pull it up real quick because I want to make sure I'm looking at the right guy here. Efforting. Jordan Travis. I think they found something in Jordan Travis to where I think it will be a high-scoring game. That 61 number does not look appealing to me at all. I feel like you've got to be on the over in that game. But I'm going to take FSU, Brian. I think FSU wins this game outright as well.
Okay. And you know what? I can't dispute that because I could have easily moved in that same direction. But
if you tell me at 3:00, Curtis, you were wrong about this game. And,
I don't think either of us have great confidence with that pick. Just because we don't have great confidence in who either of these teams are.
Yeah, the confidence in this pick of all the games we're picking, I think this one might be the lowest. Might be the lowest of the ones we're picking. All right.
Yeah.
Brian, next, Pitt Notre Dame. Notre Dame laying 10.5 points. Notre Dame coming off, against one of the worst defenses, not only the ACC, but the country. Only putting up 12 points goes against that Pitt defense, where it appears the Kenny Pickett thing is going to be on like a last-second thing where, all right, if he's playing, he really hasn't practiced. I think Notre Dame is going to win this game, but I do think Pitt is going to make the cover. I think Pitt's got a good enough defense. I think they will try to run the clock. They'll try to make this like a 21-17 game and try to hope they can hold on to it. The confidence in this one either because, it's lower because Notre Dame could be like, listen, we're better than this. Even though Pitt's a good defense, we can score on them. But I can't see laying 10.5. Not the way Notre Dame is playing the last couple weeks.
Okay. I'm going in the other direction.
All right.
I don't similar to Louisville, I don't see Notre Dame putting up another nothing burger in a row. They've been a consistently up and down team with Book running this offense the last couple years, and I think that's going to continue. And last week was kind of a down week, and I think you're going to see a more consistent offense from Notre Dame. And if they can be consistent on offense, they're going to win the game. And I think they'll win by maybe 13. It's going to be close. It's probably like a backdoor cover, field goal late to kind of put it out of reach.
All right. I'm watching Sports Center. Did you see
the Daniel Jones run?
I saw the Daniel Jones run where he got like 23 miles an hour, which is crazy. I'm looking at Sports Center. I think I sent this to you. Did you see the John Rahm shot? The absolute tank. Hold on. This is live, folks. Brian needs to see this for the simple fact of John Rahm's the number one golf player in the world. And how he hit this shot makes hacks like me feel great. So I'm going to be sending this while I set up the next one. So, Brian, sending to you now while we set up right. Georgia Tech, Boston College. I'm trying to find why this happens. Tell me when you see it.
It's coming. Here we go.
Because we're already agreeing on this one, I know. Georgia Tech, Boston College. Boston College is laying 3.5. Everybody currently that's been listening to this podcast over the last few weeks knows Brian's feeling on how Georgia Tech has treated him.
Very true. Hey, John Rahm hit that one like I hit that one.
Just a dead right shot, like, boop. Why is that ball over there? Best golf player in the world.
That thing sliced hard.
He freaking just chunked it. All right, Brian, BC laying 3.5 against Georgia Tech. We saw BC last week. They are a good, competent team. Georgia Tech is not. Give me BC and And somebody explain why this line's 3.5 to me.
I would have taken this at 8.5 or 9, so definitely give it to me at 3.5.
Bro, I'm gonna be getting on the bookmakers and being like, listen, give me 9 points. How much extra do I get for getting an extra 5.5?
What's the multiplier for taking 9?
It would probably be pretty good. You probably lay $100 on it. You know, heck, I'd say probably take to 9 if they're like this. You probably 100 to win like 3.5.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you'd be sweating, of course, but you know. All right, Brian, let's go Saturday night down in Miami, UVA, Miami. Miami is laying 12.5. As of yesterday or today, I believe, the Ginger Tebow still not cleared concussion protocol, and all, you know, of course, we're going to give that team grief. They're the primary rivals. It's getting, Brian, we're going on almost 14 days now since that happened. That's not a good sign.
We're getting into, is this a Sidney Crosby situation?
Good way to put it. Yep.
And hopefully not for them, because regardless of how we feel about UVA, I want UVA's best. I want to beat them at their best.
Absolutely.
So, you know, best wishes to him to get back on the field. I hope it's not a Sidney Crosby situation where he's out for, you know, several months and not, you know, a couple weeks or 3 or 4 weeks, you know, whatever it may be. So, and given the fact that he's not playing and the clusterfuck I saw against Wake Forest with 3 different quarterbacks running 3 different systems and none of them running it consistently enough to really make a case for an offense, I'm going to take Miami and the points, or to cover the 12.5.
Miami at 12.5. Let me put that on here. Yeah, to your point, you don't want any player whatsoever to be out like that, whether rivals or not. 12.5 is a big number because, you know, all right, we discussed UVA before the season started. Me and you kind of were both. They're going to have a pretty good defense. They're going to have to win some low scoring games. That defense is just looking bad. And I don't know if it's the mentality thing with the COVID situations or if it's just, you know, not having to now think about not having Bryce Hall, where the back half last year they didn't have to think about that. And so many other things. I didn't expect it. You know, you had told me they lost to Wake Forest. I'd be like, yeah, they probably did. They you know what? They probably lost to them 23-17. You tell me they lose by 40, and then we see the Duke game where Duke scored on them. Duke had numerous chances to put that many points up on them. You know, and it's just one of those things where it's like, I'm with you, Brian. I've got to lay 12.5 because the offense isn't going to score points. And the way Miami played last week off that loss was very impressive. And as I heard someone say this week, they don't think that's Manny Diaz. They think that's De'Aaron King. They think it's having a guy like him in that locker room that say, hey, listen, put last week out of your mind. We didn't win the game. We need to go keep winning. So Miami lay the 12.5. I see Miami getting to 30 plus, and I can't see UABA if they get to 17 or 21, it will be a miracle. All right, Brian, let's go.
I agree with you, man. I think, like I said, I think it's going to be, like I said, without Ginger Tebow, that's going to be a struggle.
All right, let's go out of conference. 2 big matchups this weekend. Big Ten football is back, which for college football world, whether you hate the Big Ten, love the Big Ten, respect it. It's awesome. We're going to see more teams playing, more games on Saturday. And the 2 matchups we're looking at here, one's from the Big 12, one's from the Big 10. Let's start with the Big 12 matchup. Oklahoma State, Iowa State. This is in Stillwater. Number 6, Oklahoma State, 17, Iowa State. Oklahoma State undefeated at 3-0. laying 3.5. Brian, what are you feeling? Actually, take that back, Brian. You led the last one, so I'm going to go with this one.
You take this. Tell me what you got.
I got to lead with this one. As much as I like Matt Campbell, I think he's a hell of a coach. I've never seen Oklahoma State play this good a defense. Yet to be unleashed is Chuba Hubbard. I think even as good as Iowa State is on defense, I think eventually you're not going to be able to hold him down. The other big one, and this is big for me, Oklahoma State in their first 3 games where they've been playing sort of a kind of muddy ball. Not what you expect from a Mike Gundy team. You usually expect Mike Gundy, they're tossing it, they're scoring points. They've been without their first string quarterback. Spencer Sanders returns this week. I think that 3.5 is way too low. I think he's going to come back. I think they're going to be more dynamic passing the ball, which is going to open up Hubert Hubbard some lanes. Not a legal limit bet, but you can put quite a bit on it. Give me Oklahoma State, lay the 3.5.
I'm right there with you, buddy. I like what Iowa State does on defense, but I just think that, as you said, kind of getting back on the right track on offense, I think is going to be big for Oklahoma State. I think they're going to be able to score enough points. I think it's going to be kind of like a 7 to 10 point victory for Okie State. So yeah, give me Okie State to cover the 3.5.
All right, we're on the same one there. And then, Brian, Saturday night, we go to Minnesota at Michigan, or Michigan at Minnesota. Michigan, the road favorite, laying 3. Now, Brian, there has been some discussion this week that potentially on Saturday night, there potentially is going to be snow showers.
Oh.
It's right now, it's kind of saying they're showing Friday, but people are saying it could be held off. Either way, it's going to be cold on Saturday night. Game time looks to be around 28 degrees on Saturday night. So it's going to be cold.
It's going to be chilly.
It's going to be chilly. What do you think in this one, Brian? Do you think Minnesota keeps the stuff going on they had last year, or do you think it's crashed back to earth? Bateman came back. They got their quarterback. What do you think?
Give me Minnesota in the 3, man. Combining, I know we're not really talking about fans, but being at home, it being chilly, really, talk about a warm-up game. I mean, there's not a warm-up game here, and the game they're having is not warm. So I like the home team in these type of scenarios. I like what Minnesota was doing last year. I think Michigan is a good team, but Michigan has not shown up a lot in some of these big games. And I think to start the year, this is a pretty important game for them. And I think it's going to be one of those down to the wire games, but I think Minnesota is going to end up probably pulling the outright victory here.
All right. Well, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that.
Okay.
And don't get me wrong, Jim Harbaugh has definitely lost. I just saw it here a little while ago, 2-12 versus like top 15 teams or top 20 teams. So he's not been good since he essentially came back to the college game. But it's just one of those things where I'm sitting here and it's just like, I can't put my finger on it, but it's just, I think they started getting over the hump this year. Maybe it's because he coached my Niners to a Super Bowl, almost a decade ago now, which is pretty wild. But they've not been a bad team since they've been back. Like 6 of the top 25 losses are to Ohio State, all right? So you take that equation, the record doesn't look as bad as it should. So I'll take Michigan in this one. Got to disagree on some stuff here and there, right, Brian?
All right, man. Well,
All right. So what you smoking this weekend, Steve?
all right. I'm actually going to my mom's this weekend,
Oh, okay.
but I will be smoking something there.
Ooh.
Doing a little pork butt on Saturday. Nothing major. Just doing some pulled pork. Doing some coleslaw. Probably do some baked beans. So should be a good one. But I will be doing it away from home. But I will have everything ready to go for the game.
Half smoke will travel right there, Mr. Brian Siegler.
Yes, sir.
Right. Anything breaking other than Daniel Jones' 23-mile-an-hour run?
And the ghost tackled him.
And the ghost tackled him.
I'm not saying the Eagles can't stop Gallman, so
Yeah. Somebody probably started him. There's people cursing on the daily fantasy things, just cursing their heads off. Like, why is Wayne Gallman the lead running back right now? Why? It's football, man. All right. Well, that is going to wrap up this episode of the Boundary Corner Podcast. I'm Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegler.
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and subscribe for your podcast on our favorite source, including Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Podcasts. Rate and review. Leave us some messages. We'd love to hear what you guys think. As always, we let our buddy Jason Long play us out. Catch him on Spotify and Apple Music. We thank you for listening. And as always, let's go.
Hokies!